Hi, it's Clown Crown Critic here. Obsession. I don't think it was perfect. I think there are a few things that were honestly holding the film back. Now, does that mean I think that it was a bad film? No. By no means at all am I saying this was a bad film. I just think that seeing a horror film that I love horror films get such high ratings and I mean absolutely crush it at the box office. I mean hundreds of millions of dollars with only the $750,000 budget the film had extremely high hopes, but probably too high hopes to be honest. I did really enjoy the film though, but I just have a few gripes with it that I wanted to relay to you lot and see what you think. Maybe people can help me understand the film better. Maybe there's some things I'm missing with the film. So let's start out with a couple strengths. I think the cinematography was absolutely brilliant. I absolutely love the Smurfs here, definitely. No, I absolutely love how certain shots are done in terms of obscuring Nikki to help with the horror. You know, a game of horror, it's the obscure, it's the unknown, that's the secret sauce that makes things terrifying. And I think that the cutaways, the close ups are done effectively to the point where that dynamic is what kept the horror and kept the anxiety inducing moments there. So there's not many you can see here apart from, yeah, no, maybe this one here. This is a nice moment where Nikki's talking to Bear up close, but then they do a few like reverse moments where she kind of walks backwards. You know, it goes in reverse, which definitely shows that kind of like there's something demonic here at this point, but not not seeing the whole form, just the shadow. That already sends chills down my spine remembering it. So the acting was great, and the script did have a lot of highlights in it. I think that the world they built and the place that they threw us into with these four main characters of Bear, Nikki, and Ian and Sarah, it felt very organic. The first 15 minutes of the film felt so organic, it felt really natural. But I mean, and I had not watched the trailer personally. I don't like watching trailers before films now because if I can avoid it, because it kind of spoils the first half of the film. However, you didn't need to even watch the trailer. The moment you see this bit right here, the moment this is done, they're making the wish, and you see, well, the film's title, Obsession. It's a horror. It doesn't take a genius to know what's going to happen. In terms of, okay, psychotic girlfriend. This is going to be some Mirai Nikki. We all remember Gasai, my anime fans out there. Rina. We all remember her. We all remember Crazy Chick. We remember this meme back in the day, don't we? At this point, we knew what was coming. We knew what was coming from a mile away. And because of that, I thought they'd subvert my expectations. I thought, they're going to throw a lot of, what's well, not U-turns, but they're going to throw a lot of, curveballs. That's it, out of the audience here, so we keep us on our toes. I don't feel like they did. I just felt like my suspension of disbelief was shattered one too many times. I get the point is that Bear letting things get out of hand before he lets things get out of hand too much before he does anything. Tries to reverse the wish or whatever else or alter it, go get help. Spoilers, of course. Goes to try and get help from Ian at the end. Ian, make your wish, reverse the wish. But I understand it's to show the character, right? To show that he's so desperate for love, he'll accept it even in as twisted as a form as he's getting from Nikki here, from demonic Nikki. But when there's certain moments, like when Sarah dies, for instance, and Bear just sits there and lets Sarah's head get turned into a cherry pie looking mess on the friggin' steering wheel. I just couldn't believe that he'd sit there to his friend and let that happen, and then even help to hide the body. um, yeah. So talking more generally, plots don't have to be complex. I don't think plots need this complexity nowadays. Sometimes simple but well execution is actually a lot better than an overcomplicated plot, especially with films that only have 2 hours or so of runtime. In this film, only had an hour of 48, was it? Yeah. So, not loads of time to flesh things out. You want to keep it simple, short, sweet, to the point. But it still just felt like they needed a few more twists and turns. I mean, if I was, in charge, okay, what would I change then? Criticism without suggestions isn't that helpful. I think that we needed it to be more subtle from Nikki. I just watched the trailer before recording this, and in the trailer, it's so much more subtle. You know, um,
Wait, I was gonna ask you,
What?
uh, I, I lost
where is it? Here we are.
one wish, Willow. You only get one wish. I wish Nikki Freeman loved me more than anyone in the entire world.
That's how it should have been. But in the film itself, Bear looks out the window after making that wish, and Nikki stood there shadowed far away. I know what I mentioned earlier on about the shadow and the, just using the silhouettes, it's creepy. But straight away you can just tell, okay, she's gone crazy mode. Rather than it just being like, oh, she's back. Maybe did she forget something? I'm sure this wish isn't actually going to work. They kind of make it really clear from the get-go, yeah, the wish worked. So that maybe using that kind of subtleties might have helped. I wanted it to be that Nikki's crazy behavior wasn't 0 to 100 early on. It's only on like the second or third scene of them together post the Willow wish that Nikki's screaming in the bedroom, crying, going hysterical, and you think at that point, surely Bear would be thinking, well, this isn't right. What's going on here? Let's get some help, maybe. But I don't know. I guess Bear's just that desperate, isn't he, as a character? So we get some other things as well. And I don't know if anyone remembers the film Saltburn. There was scenes that went viral on TikTok and just other social media. If you watch the film, you know the scenes I mean, in the bathtub, at the grave, in the cemetery, all that, all those shenanigans happening. And it feels like they're there for the sake of shock value, for the sake of this will be a funny, this will get good clout on social media. This is shock, but how does it actually link to the characters? Does it further the characterization? Does it further the plot? So scenes like where he's fed the friggin' cat sandwich, fed a little cute cat sandwich, and it's actually bloody Bear's dead cat. Why would she do that? That's not in love. And I know, okay, well, she's crazy. Yeah, but maybe make it more subtle. I don't know, like, I don't know how I'd change that scene. I just wouldn't have that scene there in general. But another scene that we could talk about might be the party they're at. So the party they're at, it's just so clear that she's crazy at this point in the party. But maybe make it more subtle. Maybe when Bear's got to kiss Sarah as the dare from the Jenga tower thing, maybe maybe Nikki's just, like there looking very uncomfortable by it, but she doesn't actually friggin' pull Sarah's chair out the way and, take her place. Maybe then Sarah gets ill later on that night. Maybe someone spiked her drink. We don't know. Did we see Nikki? Nikki might have done it. They could have done some more subtleties. And then maybe we don't know whether Bear's just imagining it. Maybe Bear's imagining Nikki's psychotic. But instead it just kind of is really explicit with, here's the horror, here's what's happening. No, I want to be guessing. I want to be kept on the edge of my seat. I don't want it to be, pretty obvious from 15 minutes into the film that this girl is going to be so obsessively in love that she's going to kill everyone around him and probably him himself at some point, or herself. And yeah, that's pretty much what happens. Everyone friggin' dies apart from Nikki at the end of the film. So, other moments that were predictable, again, Sarah's death. It's a mile away, you see that coming, 10 miles away. The moment we see any kind of little small connection between Nikki and Sarah, they have that little moment when it's the back to the bloody cat sandwich scene. That Sarah puts her head on Bear's shoulder, and you think, right, okay, well, yeah, right, she's interested. He's possibly interested as well, but there's gonna clearly Sarah's gonna get killed by Nikki, isn't she? Also, Sarah's an idiot. The note said, "What's the verdict? Cat." That is literally what it says. What's the verdict? Cat. What's the verdict? Cat. And Sarah knows that his cat died recently, and she can't put two together. And after literally Nikki starts throwing up, he's fine, he's chill. Reads the message, starts throwing up. Sarah's like, "Oh, what's wrong, Bear?" I was like, "Why is it not obvious what's wrong?" There's just a few moments you just think the characters seem incredibly dumb, which is a shame because the script felt so organic to begin with. Everyone just starts acting incredibly stupid by this point. But anyways, back to the positives. The audio. Now, I played a little bit there. I don't know how much I can get away with playing, but the soundtrack is very immersive. It's dreamlike. It's got that, like, it brings you in. It's like a 4D immersion. You feel like you are there. I mean, the soundtrack makes you feel like you've just stepped into this lovely artwork they've got here. You feel like it's from Bear's point of view. You'll see Nikki as this, I don't want to say goddess, but this captivation, this image of pure, well, I don't want to say lust, but also I don't want to say love, sorry, but yeah, lust. It is more of a lust thing, although kind of like a dependency thing, because he is also a lonely character. That's half the point. It's not just for the sex. It's he moved to this city knowing no one other than his grandma, was it? But the grandma's dead before the film even starts, so he's got no one, only the cat, and the cat dies in the first 2 minutes as well. So, it's a codependency thing. That's why he can't step out of it. And, he wouldn't want to get rid of the wish. He just wants to order it halfway through rather than getting rid of it because he still wants it, still needs her in whatever form that takes. But yeah, the soundtrack was great. There are a couple tiny little gripes, like near the end, there's some crazy scenes where everyone's getting loud, everyone's shouting, and just I miss a few lines of dialogue, but maybe that's just my hearing. Maybe. But going back to that, I think one way the horror could have been heightened again is that they need to lean into that dreamlike nature. Make Bear unsure if what he's experiencing is real. Make him paranoid. There's the scene where you've got like the taped up door, which was great. I loved the reveal of it. This was seeing his reaction, seeing his face, and Nikki just looking so innocent like, and then you pan to the not pan, but it's a cut. It's a quick cut to the door. That was great. But it's just again very clear that Nikki's crazy. Maybe he sees this in the middle of the night instead, and then he goes back to sleep, wakes up, and the tape is off the door, and he asks himself, "Was I dreaming? Am I going crazy?" Give us more of that mystery. There's a lot of other films that have done this, like The Babadook, for instance. The Babadook's got loads of scenes where you don't really know if what's going on is the mum just kind of, the stress getting to her because she's a single mum, or if it is actually the demonic being itself, and it's kept very open-ended, of course, in The Babadook. But there's lots. I like that open-ended nature of it. Horror should leave you guessing, second-guessing. And I don't know as if I was. It was just very clear this is what's happened. And people complimented the whole lack of 30-minute waste. The lack of the detective scene, the exposition scene that every horror film has, where it explains the MacGuffin or explains the horror artifact, whatever it is, and the science behind it. You get in all the Conjuring films and all that. They kind of have it, but it's very quick. It's a quick phone call, and then you quickly goes back to the shop at the end, near the end, to try and get him to buy more One Wish Willow's Bear does. But I just don't want to know. I'd rather it just don't tell us. Make us unsure, even at the end of the film, if the One Wish Willow ever worked. That's what I prefer. But then when they have the scene with Ian winning the $1 billion, then it just becomes really clear that oh no, these things do work. Do that scene. I don't know if you see an image of it or not, but if you've seen the film, you know the scene I'm talking about. So I wanted there to be more red herrings. I wanted there to be more second guessing, and I didn't want it to be that. I do love the memes of this, by the way. This is one of the best things to come out of this film. No, I am joking. There was a lot of great things to come out of this film, other than just the still image. But there were some good memes from this. I wanted it to be not 0 to 100 and back down to 0. She's there, they're cuddling, lovey-dovey cuddling, and then all of a sudden she's screaming, she's hysterical, she's crying, she's watching him from the corner of the bedroom, I like watching you sleep. And then clearly she's crazy, and then she starts crying, and then she holds up the flowers, hiding behind the flowers, and then she's just like, these would be nice for your cat. And she's just kind of like, it's like going from first gear to fifth gear, back down to first gear, if you drive a manual, you know what I mean. It's just too quick of a sharp change. I wanted it to be more of a gradual build up. We're not sure if Nikki's fine. Of course, we're gonna have that as an audience. We'll know more than the characters, of course, dramatic irony and all. We know more than the characters do as the audience member a lot of the time. Fine, but it should be more gradual, more of a build up. Keep those gory scenes at the end. Some of them are brilliant, absolutely brilliant, really unnerving. And the acting and the cinematography and the audio all keep the scares dynamic. So, props where props are due to Indy Navarrete. And who was in charge of the audio, actually? I don't know. And Curry Barker. Yeah, Barker. I was going to say Baker. No. Curry Barker. I don't know who did the audio. Composer Rock Burwell. What else has he done? Okay, that's like his main thing. Violet, I haven't seen the short. Okay, well done. But yeah, the dynamic, the audio, the good acting, and the cinematography all keep the scares dynamic enough. They do, but the scripts and the choices the characters make is where it falls apart a little bit. The constant 0 to 100, 0 to 100 is just too shock change. It becomes too predictable. You know straight away the moment Bear interacts with Nikki after leaving her home for however long that she's just going to be she's going to freak out straight away. Maybe in the party scene, they have a little party later on. Maybe during this scene, just beforehand, Bear's saying to Ian, I don't know about Nikki, she's going kind of crazy. And then Ian's like, yeah, don't invite her to the boys' night. It's just a party in the end. But then obviously she comes, she forces her way in. She's abusive in private to Bear, but then in public, she's still really charming. She's still really lovely. Everyone's like, oh, Nikki's great. I don't know what you're talking about, Bear. And then make Bear second guess himself. Is he imagining it? Is it all an illusion? Is Nikki actually just really really lovely still in public, and people don't know, people don't see it in private. And that speaks more about the nature of abusive relationships. You don't know what happens behind closed doors, and that's that's the message they wanted to go for here. Keep it hidden in public, but then in private, it's a catastrophe, of course. Like this scene, I think is what, and then again, everyone's reaction. She bludgeons herself with a bottle, and no one here wants to go to the police or get her sectioned. No one here thinks that's a good idea after she bludgeons herself with a glass bottle. Are you kidding me? Like, at this point, that's when this was the scene, my suspension of disbelief just got absolutely shattered. I thought, there's no way. Okay, sure, Bear is kind of an idiot, a moron, or he's abused. He is abused, so even though he is also the villain, of course, whatever, but he is being abused by the demonic entity. What was I saying? Yeah, Bear's being abused, so of course Bear's going to make stupid choices. But why is everyone else here making stupid choices, or just lack of choices? It just doesn't. Yeah. But I feel like I've got a lot. I feel like I've moaned a lot. And I think it's because there were times when I genuinely was loving the film. From the soundtrack to the acting to a simple but effective premise. And then some of the best done scares, some of the best, like this here. I'll just play a little bit of it here. I know like trailers are it's always a little bit different to the film, but the crying, the good acting, the kind of almost ethereal forms here. I don't know if they got makeup or prosthetics to make her look older here. In that little moment of her here. I'm getting chill. I'm already getting chills down my spine just watching this here. Looking at that gives me chills. Goosebumps and all that. And I think because I feel so passionate as to why I had these small gripes. I say small, moderately sized gripes with the film in terms of the. I think I would put it down to some of the scripting, which is weird because sometimes the scripting felt amazing, like the start, very organic. But then there's times when characters make ridiculous choices, and it's just 0 to 100. They could have had more in between moments. They could have had more second guessing, a bit more mystery, and a plot that just wasn't predictable after 15 minutes of the film. But anyways, that's all I've got to say about this. Thanks all for watching. I appreciate it. And I'll see you in the next one where I'm going to be looking at Toy Story 5 maybe. I don't know. Yeah. Thanks ever so much. See you later.